ました。
始まる前から泣いてました。
本当にありがとうございました。
たくさんの感謝ね、伝えられたかな。
皆さん、サポートがあって、フリは成り立ってました。支えてくださったね、方々に心から、感謝をお伝えしたいなっていうふうに思います。
ありがとうございました。
That moment left the entire world speechless. In February 2026, under the bright lights of Milan Cortina, a new legend was born in the world of figure skating. Japan's iconic pair team, Riku, made up of Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara, captured a historic Olympic gold medal. But tonight, we are not only revisiting the glory of that unforgettable victory. We are going back to the true beginning of the story, the emotional night at the Japanese National Championships where everything changed forever. Along the way, we'll uncover backstage moments, emotional reactions from international media, and the painful journey that brought these two champions back onto the ice. Why were they able to return after pushing their bodies to the absolute limit? Why did Kihara collapse to his knees the very moment they won? And just how deep was the bond shared by the team standing beside them? Personally, every time I follow the story of Riku, I find myself questioning what true strength really means. Their journey is more than a sports story. It feels like a reflection of how human beings fight, survive, and continue moving forward even when everything seems impossible. Tonight, let's step into that truth together. Let's rewind the clock to the fall of 2023. At that time, a silent darkness was slowly taking over Ryuichi Kihara's body. The diagnosis was spondylolysis, a serious lower back injury that can be devastating for any athlete, especially in pair skating, where the male partner must constantly lift and support another skater high above his head. It was not just pain, it was potentially career-ending. Kihara was forced to withdraw from the 2023 Grand Prix Series, and later from the Japanese National Championships as well. For athletes, choosing not to compete is often far more painful than competing through suffering. Deep down, Kihara must have replayed that heartbreak over and over again in his mind. Then came early 2024. At the Four Continents Championships in February and the World Championships in March, the pair fought through the pain and somehow managed to claim silver medals, proving they still belonged among the world's elite. But behind those results, their bodies were nowhere near fully recovered. The off-season became a non-stop battle focused entirely on rehabilitation and recovery. Then came September and their long-awaited return to competition at the Lombardia Trophy in Italy. But what awaited them there was beyond cruel. During a lift, disaster struck. Riku Miura lost balance in midair, and without hesitation, Kihara sacrificed his own body to protect her, slamming violently onto the ice with his back. The entire arena froze in fear. Fans, coaches, and commentators all held their breath, terrified that the nightmare injury had returned. Normally, a moment like that can destroy an entire season before it even begins, but Riku refused to surrender. Just weeks later, they stormed back to win the Skate America title, announcing to the world that they were still alive in this fight. Then came the NHK Trophy, where they once again overcame adversity with a stunning performance that brought them back to the top of the podium. Step by step, almost like a prayer, they fought their way toward December 2024 and the stage that would define everything, the Japanese National Championships. Honestly, every time I retrace the path they walked to reach that competition, my chest tightens with emotion. Most athletes would have broken mentally after enduring that many setbacks in a row, but these two kept moving forward. Even watching from behind a screen, it becomes impossible not to feel emotional thinking about the strength it took to survive all of it. And finally, the moment arrived. December 2024, Japan's most prestigious figure skating event. The competition where the winner earns the title of national champion. For the first time in 5 years, Riku stepped back onto that sacred ice. Since forming their partnership in 2019, this was only their second appearance at nationals. By that point, they had already conquered nearly every major international competition and even completed the Grand Slam of pair skating. Yet standing again on Japanese ice carried a completely different weight. The years before had been filled with endless obstacles, travel restrictions during the pandemic, lost luggage during overseas competitions, Kihara's devastating injury in 2023, one hardship after another. The crowd inside the arena knew exactly what these two had survived to get there. Every person watching understood they were witnessing something far bigger than a competition. Then the free skate began. Early in the program, Kihara made a mistake. In pair skating, That is often the beginning of disaster because one error can instantly destroy the rhythm and confidence of both skaters. But Riku Miura refused to let the performance collapse. Instead, she elevated her focus even further. Their lift soared with breathtaking height and precision. The throw jumps landed cleanly. And one of the hardest elements in pair skating, the side-by-side triple jumps, was executed beautifully in sync. Piece by piece, despite exhaustion and pain, they rebuilt the program with incredible determination. It almost felt as if they were carving every hardship of the past 5 years directly into the ice itself. Afterward, Kihara quietly reflected on the performance, saying they never let the mistake control the rest of the skate, and that resilience carried them all the way to victory. When the music ended, the arena exploded. Thunderous applause filled every corner of the building. Fans rose to their feet in a massive standing ovation. It was not just applause for a winning performance. It was respect for two people who had fought through pain, fear, and uncertainty to return to this moment. And this is important to understand. The true greatness of that performance cannot be measured only through technical scores or program components. Many champions can skate clean programs. Very few can recover from early mistakes under that kind of emotional pressure and still rise to victory. That night was not simply a display of athletic skill. It was a performance built entirely on mental strength, but the real legend of that night began after the program ended. The moment they won, there was no celebration in Kihara's face. Instead, he collapsed to his knees and could not stand. Beside him, Riku gently reached out and stroked his shoulder. The entire world asked the same question. Why would someone break down after winning? Later, Kihara admitted that he was overwhelmed with guilt over the mistake during the lift. The pain in his body, the pressure of protecting the performance until the very end, and the overwhelming responsibility he carried for his partner all crashed down on him at once. In that single moment, every emotion he had been holding back finally shattered. And then came the most heartbreaking scene of all. As he attempted to remove his skates and leave the rink, his body suddenly gave out completely. Coach Bruno Marcotte rushed to hold him up while Riku stood nearby, visibly worried. Trainer Watanabe immediately moved in to support him as well. 3 people instantly surrounding one exhausted athlete. It was not just an accident. It was a powerful symbol of a team that had survived every hardship together. The footage spread across social media within minutes. Fans around the world were overwhelmed with emotion. People wrote that this was the true face of Team Ryukyu. Others said they never realized such deep bonds existed behind the scenes of elite sports. International fans described the moment as the beauty of a samurai comeback, and not a story about victory, but a story about trust. Even now, it is impossible to watch that scene without feeling emotional. Personally, while editing this story, I found myself stopping multiple times just to stare at the screen in silence, because for a few seconds, that moment captured the pure beauty of humanity itself. What made the scene even more special was the reaction from everyone around them. Normally, when a champion collapses emotionally, other competitors keep their distance out of respect. But that night was different. Younger Japanese pair teams immediately rushed over to congratulate them and thank them for returning. For those younger skaters, Ryukyu were not simply rivals. They were heroes who had shown them what was possible. During the medal ceremony, the atmosphere even lightened with laughter as the athletes joked together about the bouquets and celebrations. That balance between greatness and humility is one of Ryukyu's most lovable qualities. Fans online noticed it immediately, praising how genuinely happy the other skaters looked for them. In Japan's figure skating world, athletes may compete fiercely against each other, but they also support one another deeply. That culture of mutual respect is one of the reasons Japanese skating continues to earn admiration from around the globe. In a later interview, coach Bruno Marcotte revealed just how difficult that season truly was for the team. After the terrifying accident at the Lombardia Trophy in September, he admitted it took far longer than anyone expected for Ryuichi Kihara to regain the courage to attempt pair lifts again. But even through the fear, Kihara never gave up. Marcotte explained that the team spent countless hours talking through the emotional scars left behind by the accident. And at the center of that recovery stood Riku Miura, whose unwavering belief in her partner became the foundation that carried him back onto the ice. The coach said there were moments when all he could do was trust in the bond those two shared. During the free skate at Nationals, when the early mistake happened, Marcotte confessed that even he stopped breathing for a moment. But the second he looked into their eyes, he knew they would survive it. Those were the eyes of athletes who had already decided they would fight until the very end no matter what happened. And when Kihara collapsed after the performance, Marcotte understood exactly why. He had spent every final second battling through pain while protecting the integrity of the program. As a coach, Marcotte called it one of the proudest moments of his entire career. With tears in his eyes, he later admitted that out of every competition he had ever witnessed, that night would remain one of the most unforgettable of his life. A man from Canada dedicating years of his life to guiding a young Japanese pair team, then crying for their victory as if it were his own. Few relationships in modern sports feel that deeply human anymore. What personally struck me the most was the phrase Marcotte chose when describing their victory. Instead of focusing only on the gold medal, he described it as a journey back from defeat. Very few coaches speak about a championship that way, but in those words you could feel how much he valued not just the result, but every painful step the pair had taken to get there. And then came 2026. The legendary gold medal in Milan Cortina transformed their story into a global phenomenon. International media outlets became almost obsessed with Ryuichi's comeback. Britain's prestigious newspaper, The Guardian, published a major feature calling them Japan's small heroes on ice. The article praised the pair for representing values modern sports sometimes forget: patience, trust, and total devotion to one another. It described Kihara's physical sacrifices and Miura's emotional strength as a lesson future skaters around the world would study for years. Meanwhile, BBC Sports created a special feature centered around the unforgettable image from the 2024 Japanese nationals, the moment Kihara dropped to his knees while Miura gently rested a hand on his shoulder. They called it one of the defining images of modern figure skating and argued it deserved to be remembered forever. In France, the legendary sports publication L'Equipe focused on the technical brilliance of the pair. They praised the synchronization of the side-by-side triple jumps, the complexity of the lifts, and the almost supernatural harmony in their skating. According to the outlet, Ryuichi had reached the highest technical level in the world, but what made them truly special was the humanity hidden inside every movement. Then the spotlight shifted to America. During NBC's live broadcast from Milan Cortina, one commentator became emotional while speaking about Kihara's comeback. He explained that many experts once believed Kihara might never compete again because of his back injury. Yet there he was, standing on top of the world. The commentator declared that this was exactly why people fall in love with sports in the first place. ESPN also produced a major documentary-style feature, describing Ryuichi as the pair that permanently changed the history of Asian pair skating. Their report emphasized not only the team's technical skill, but also the extraordinary mentality that carried them through years of setbacks. Even major newspapers joined the wave of admiration. The New York Times referred to them as the pair who rewrote adversity, arguing that their gold medal represented far more than athletic success. According to the article, Ryuichi restored the human soul of pair skating itself. The Washington Post focused on the emotional image of Kihara kneeling after the performance, writing that the moment somehow captured both the weight of victory and the tenderness of defeat at the same time. The paper even claimed that before they ever stood atop the Olympic podium in Milan, they had already become the true spiritual winners of the sport. One of the most fascinating reactions came from Golden Skate, one of the world's leading figure skating publications. A reporter who had attended the Japanese nationals in person later admitted that after witnessing that performance firsthand, he already knew Ryuichi would eventually win Olympic gold in Milan Cortina. His prediction later went viral online after becoming reality. Across social media, former elite skaters from around the world also shared emotional reactions. American pair skaters called Ryuichi the ideal form of what pair skating should be. European legends praised the combination of Kihara's physical sacrifice and Miura's emotional support, describing it as one of the most beautiful partnerships they had ever seen. Commentators everywhere repeated the same idea: they did not win because of technique alone, they won because of their story. That night, they redefined what pair skating could be, and honestly, that may be the most important part of all. When you look at the worldwide reaction to Ryuichi, most people were not talking only about scores or medals. They were talking about humanity, about trust, about resilience, about two people who continued choosing each other even in the darkest moments. That is why their story spread so deeply across the world. It became bigger than sports. But behind all the international praise and glory, there was still another hidden story that most fans never saw. because before the miracle morning of victory, there were sleepless nights filled with fear. On the night before the Japanese National Championships in December 2024, Ryuichi Kihara reportedly stood silently by the hotel window in Kyoto, staring into the darkness outside. The pain in his back was far more serious than he ever allowed the public to see. Every day, he carefully managed pain medication, terrified of relying too heavily on it. But even worse than the pain was the fear. Since the accident in Lombardia, the memory of failing during a lift had never truly left his mind. Later interviews revealed that even during practice after his return, there were moments when his body would suddenly freeze during lifts. For a split second, strength would disappear from his arms, and that terrified him more than anything. And standing beside him through all of it was Riku Miura. Whenever she noticed the anxiety in his face during practice, she would quietly tell him not to push himself too hard. She constantly reminded him that it was okay to admit when he was hurting, but Miura herself was carrying emotional scars too. The image of Kihara throwing his body onto the ice to protect her during the Lombardia accident never left her mind. Deep down, she feared that if he could no longer skate because of that moment, it would somehow be her fault. According to people close to the team, there were nights after the accident when Miura would cry alone. Supporting both athletes emotionally during this period was trainer Rio Watanabe, whose role went far beyond physical care. Watanabe explained that being a trainer also meant understanding when to speak to athletes during moments of fear and when silence was more important. Every emotional detail mattered. The entire team worked together to protect the skaters mentally as much as physically. And amid all that pressure, there were still small moments of warmth that revealed who these athletes really were. Before competitions, Miura always ate a simple salted rice ball because it made her feel calm and connected to home in Japan. Kihara, meanwhile, always drank warm miso soup the night before competition. Think about that for a moment. Two athletes standing at the very top of the figure skating world found comfort not in luxury, but in the simplest and most familiar pieces of Japanese culture. It says everything about how grounded they truly are. Another important figure behind the scenes was Marcotte's wife and co-coach, a former elite pair skater herself. During the team's long stays in Canada, she reportedly cared for Rikuryu almost like family. Together, the coaching team helped create one of Rikuryu's signature moves, a unique transition fans lovingly nicknamed the baby catch, where Kihara spreads his legs as Miura slides beneath him before being lifted upward in one seamless motion. It is not even an officially scored element, but it became unforgettable because it added personality and emotion to their programs. Those small creative details helped transform lost time caused by injury into something meaningful instead of empty. Finally, the morning of nationals arrived. Kihara reportedly woke up at 3 a.m. and quietly performed his rehabilitation exercises longer and more carefully than ever before. Outside, the sky was still completely dark, but when the two finally met at breakfast, they smiled at each other like it was any normal day. Neither of them spoke about the fear, the pain, or the sleepless night behind them, and maybe that silence itself was proof of how strong their bond had become. Before the competition began, coach Bruno Marcotte reportedly looked at the pair and said only one simple sentence: "Tonight, just skate the way you always do. I believe in you." It sounds like such a small thing, but for Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara, those words became a source of enormous comfort. Honestly, while researching these backstage stories, there were moments when I found myself completely speechless. Even athletes standing at the top of the world are still human beings carrying sleepless nights, fear and doubt deep inside them. And yet, because they had people beside them who believed in them, they were able to step onto the ice again the next morning. That, to me, is the true strength of Team Rikuryu. Their greatness was never only about technique. It was hidden inside the silent bond that carried them through those restless nights. And when you place their comeback into the long history of figure skating, the magnitude of what they achieved becomes even more unbelievable. In pair skating, it is extremely rare for a male skater suffering from a serious back injury to return and reach the top of the world again. Most athletes facing that kind of damage either retire completely or leave pair skating behind forever. The physical demands of pair skating are simply brutal. Male partners are expected to lift athletes weighing nearly 100 pounds above their heads, while spinning, jumping, and maintaining perfect balance on razor-thin blades. Every movement places unimaginable pressure on the lower back, shoulders, knees, and ankles. When you understand that reality, what Kihara accomplished begins to feel almost impossible. Diagnosed with spondylolysis, surviving the devastating lift accident in September, and still managing to win the Japanese national championships before capturing Olympic gold in Milan Cortina in 2026, it borders on a medical miracle. There is also another challenge unique to pair skating in Japan. Unlike singles skating, Japan has historically had very few world-class pair skating coaches within the country. That reality forced Riku to spend long periods training overseas in Canada under Marcotte's guidance. Living far from home for months at a time created emotional pressure far beyond what many fans realize. Their journey was not just physically exhausting, it was mentally isolating too. When comparing their comeback to other legendary moments in Japanese figure skating history, the differences become striking. The emotional comeback of legendary Japanese skater Masada at the 2014 Olympics was a story of mental resilience, but Riku's story became something even harsher. It was a fight against both physical collapse and emotional exhaustion at the same time. That is why their comeback created an entirely different kind of legend in the figure skating world. Honestly, many other elite pairs might have retired long before reaching this point. Back in Japan, the reaction to their victory became nothing short of explosive. After winning the Japanese nationals and later taking Olympic gold in Milan Cortina, messages of celebration flooded social media from athletes across the Japanese skating world. One top men's singles skater wrote that he had witnessed firsthand how much suffering the pair had overcome and said he respected them from the bottom of his heart. A female singles star shared that Riku inspired her to admire pair skating itself, calling them a treasure of Japanese figure skating. Younger pair teams posted emotional letters promising to continue chasing the dream of someday standing on the world stage just like Riku. Even the television broadcasts became emotional. One veteran commentator, who had followed the pair since their partnership first began, reportedly struggled to hold back tears after their victory was confirmed. He said he had watched them from the very beginning and thanked them for everything they had done for Japanese figure skating. Cameras later captured him quietly wiping tears away during the live broadcast, making viewers even more emotional at home. Perhaps the most touching message came from Kihara's former partner, who had once trained under Marcotte as well. She publicly congratulated him online, saying she felt truly happy seeing the dreams they once chased together finally come true alongside Riku Miura. Her message received hundreds of thousands of likes from fans around the world. And then came the fans. Social media exploded with emotion. Messages poured in non-stop for hours. "I can't stop crying. Thank you, Riku. I'm proud to be Japanese today." One fan's message became especially famous online. She wrote that she had spent so long worrying about the pair and crying from fear during their struggles, but this time she was crying tears of happiness instead. That single post was shared hundreds of thousands of times because so many people felt exactly the same way. Another important figure quietly supporting the team behind the scenes was the Kimoto Group, whose financial and emotional support helped make it possible for Riku to continue training in Canada under world-class conditions. After the victory, the company released an official statement expressing deep admiration for the pair. But personally, the most moving part of Japan's reaction was seeing how younger skaters looked up to Riku not with jealousy, but with genuine love and admiration. In sports, champions are often envied, yet Riku became something different. Younger athletes saw them as role models whose dreams they wanted to inherit and continue. That alone says everything about the character these two built through years of hardship. And now, as this long journey comes to an end, we return one final time to that unforgettable image from Kyoto in December 2024, the moment when Ryuichi Kihara fell to his knees on the ice. Because in the end, that moment was never simply about winning a gold medal. It was the story of a man refusing to abandon the ice despite carrying a devastating spinal injury. It was the story of a man who threw his own body into danger to protect his partner during a terrifying accident, and a woman who never stopped believing in him afterward. It was the story of a Canadian coaching couple dedicating their lives to helping a Japanese pair reach the top of the world. And above all, it became proof that pair skating, perhaps more than any other sport, cannot exist without absolute trust between human beings. Think again about what the world's media said about them. The Guardian praised their patience and devotion. BBC called their emotional moment one of the defining images of modern figure skating. France's L'Equipe saw storytelling beyond technique. The New York Times described them as the pair who restored humanity to the sport itself. The Washington Post called their performance a perfect balance between the weight of victory and the gentleness of defeat. and Golden Skate admitted they already knew Olympic glory was coming after witnessing the Japanese nationals firsthand. All of those words were written for one pair alone, Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara. To Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara, congratulations from the bottom of our hearts, and more than anything, thank you. Thank you for showing the world what courage truly looks like. Thank you for proving that trust can survive even the darkest moments. And thank you for giving sports fans everywhere a story they will never forget. Because that image of Kihara kneeling on the ice in Kyoto was never a symbol of defeat. It was a quiet promise that they would rise again even stronger than before. And finally, allow me one personal thought. After spending years covering sports stories and the emotions hidden behind them, very few journeys have moved me as deeply as Rikuryu's. No matter how many times I revisit their performances, the emotion never fades. Their story has become one of the most meaningful stories I will carry with me for the rest of my life. And if this video touched your heart in any way, I hope you hold on to that feeling. Because what Rikuryu taught us goes beyond figure skating. They reminded us of the beauty of trusting another person completely, enduring pain without giving up, and continuing to chase dreams together no matter how impossible the road becomes.